This is Cars and Bids, and today I am going to tell you my top 10 favorite cars we've sold on Cars and Bids for around $30,000 or less. So let's get started. All right, under $30,000. Now, the reason I chose this number, the average price of a new car in the United States, the average new car sale is around $37,000. Big money to me. 30 grand buys you like a moderately equipped Camry or a really nice Corolla. But if you go into the used world, the used enthusiast car world, you might be surprised what sort of interesting, fun, and quirky stuff you can get at that price point. So these are my top 10 favorite around 30 grand or less cars we've sold on Cars and Bids, and they are ranked. So we will start with number 10, this 2016 Volvo S60 T6 Polestar, Rebel Blue, the coolest Volvo color in years. This has under 50,000 miles, and it's a 6-cylinder model, not a later 4-cylinder version. The 6 cylinders had less power, but most people thought they kind of felt more potent. There's only 31 made in this color this year, and it sold for $28,555. Now, we also sold a wagon version, which of course is even cooler, but that went for like $37,000. This one squeaked under 30, and it's just sort of an alternative to a BMW 3 Series or Mercedes C-Class if you want something cooler that you're just not gonna find anywhere else in an awesome color. Next up, number 9, this 2017 Honda Civic Type R. I'm cheating a little bit on this one because it actually sold for $30,750 plus a little bit more with our commission fee. But it's around $30,000, and to me it's just incredible how much car you can get in terms of the Civic Type R at this price point. This car has just 4,400 miles on it, and these are still being sold new in like the mid $40,000 range, plus some dealers are asking markups. This was a stock, really clean Civic Type R, low miles, looks just like a brand new one for around 30 grand, and that's a pretty good number for such a sought-after, exciting new car that is still, like I said, being marked up at dealers. Okay, next up, number 8, 2013 BMW M5. Again, cheated a little bit on the price because this also went for $30,750, but again, it is unbelievable car for the money. It is insane to me that you can get this much car for the money. Gorgeous blue color, the best color to get this car in my opinion, 49,000 miles, so really not all that worn at all. 560 horsepower modern BMW. It feels like a new car when you get inside, and you can get it for like 30 grand. I just find that to be such a crazy thing. Now, obviously you start thinking about maintenance, repairs, that sort of thing, so you have to go in with your eyes wide open. It's not gonna only ever be 30 grand. And I know it's not a manual transmission car, which would be more exciting, but well-kept car, this color, this miles, for 30, it's just a bargain.
And next up, number 7 is this Maserati. Somehow I forgot to record this in my garage, so we'll just look at it. These Maserati Coupe and Spider models are cheap. They're also not that highly regarded, but this is the perfect one. The Spider, which looks the best, and the manual transmission, which drives the best. I know there are reliability fears with these, but the biggest one is with the automatic transmission, which this car doesn't have. Frankly, this is a lot of car for under $19,000, which is what this one sold for.
Okay, number 6. I'm actually splitting this into two very similar cars around the same price point. We sold a 2004 Audi S4 Avant. This is a really cool car. The S4 from this era, the B6, was cool to begin with. It had a V8, it rivaled the M3 back then. The newer S4s are kind of watered down a little bit. They don't compete in that segment, but back then it did. So you already had a cool car. Then it's a wagon, which adds some cool practicality with the same performance. And it's Nogaro Blue, which is the coolest color, and Nogaro Blue interior, and it's a 6-speed manual. This is the ultimate B6 Audi from this generation, the coolest Audi you can get. This one went for $21,500, under 60,000 miles, and I'm just obsessed with this car. I love the B6 S4 Avant, Nogaro Blue stick. How can you go wrong? It's a really cool Audi wagon if you're looking for a practical, fun car. In the same vein, we also sold a 2004 Audi RS6 Avant. Now, this car is too new to be easily imported to the United States, but it was being sold in Canada where it is legal. Their regulations are a little different, and it sold to a Canadian buyer for $20,000. 84,000 miles on this car. Again, amazingly cool. This is a twin-turbo V8, 450 horsepower wagon for 20 grand. Now, reliability with these RS6 Avants is a little bit questionable, but again, it's the kind of thing, you go into it with your eyes wide open, you have a specialist or you know what you're doing, then you can make it work, no question about it. And you've just got a really rare, really special car for 20 grand, and I just think that's a total bargain for something that exciting. Okay, next up, number 5, this 1994 Land Rover Defender 110 sold for exactly $30,000. Lots of imported Defenders, I am learning as I do cars and bid stuff, are pretty rough. They have corrosion. In the US, the Defenders that were imported here were treated better because they were expensive. They were kind of third cars. They didn't get that many miles. In foreign markets, they often were farm implements. They were driven hard. They were used, and they can't come here until they're 25 years old. So it's 25 years of heavy use. But this was a pretty nice one. It was left-hand drive, which is always a benefit in the US. And it looked good. It had been kind of upgraded and restored a little bit. And it's a 110, so it's more practical than a two-door 90. This was a nice one, and it brought $30,000, which is a good number. It's a cool-looking, old-school Land Rover. It would be fun to own and to drive for way less money than a North American spec model, which would be twice as much or 3 times as much for a 110. So this is kind of a cool way to get into a Land Rover for reasonable car money. Okay, next up, number 4 is this 1984 Honda CRX. This only sold for $13,500, so way below 30 grand, but I just absolutely love this car. I adore the CRX. It is impossible to find them in good condition. This car was pristine. It had about 100,000 miles on it, but it looked so nice. The exterior looked great, those old school wheels, blue interior, had never been modified, and it was just a really, really clean car. And a lot of people were surprised, oh, someone would pay $13,500 for a CRX, it's too much. It's not that much when you consider how difficult these old school Japanese cars are to come by, and when you consider that the nostalgia factor for these old Japanese cars is increasing, and the buyer of this car said he owned one when it was new and he wanted that experience again. And that's the kind of person who's getting these cars. They're into that feeling of how it used to be. Okay, next up, number 3. This 1984 Porsche 911 Targa. Well, again, this one's a little over. It actually sold for $30,250. The cool thing here, air-cooled Porsches do not exist at this price point. That ship has sailed well into the $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 range, $70,000 for really nice ones. It's just gotten totally out of hand. But this one had 250,000 miles. Now that would have scared off a lot of people, and with good reason. But it also had service records going back 30 years to 1991, 30 years of service records. So you know exactly what has been done to it to keep it in nice shape. So you knew exactly what you were getting into. And whoever bought this, if it remains reliable, it is a total bargain. The car was in really clean condition, and nobody will ever know that you got your air-cooled Porsche for half the price unless they check your odometer. Is a really cool buy, and it's cool to be able to get into that market at an affordable price point since so many of those are gone and they now cost a fortune. Okay, down to the last 2. Number 2, this 1992 Nissan Skyline GTR. This sold for $28,000. What a cool car for this number. I owned an R32 GTR. It drives amazingly well, but even if it didn't, it's like an icon car. The Nissan Skyline from Japan. We all wanted this when we were playing Gran Turismo as kids, and now you can get them, and they're less than 30 grand. This one was Bayside Blue, the famed color from the R34 GTR, only 58,000 miles. But here's your chance to get a real icon car for under 30 grand. And that's a pretty cool thing to be able to do. Again, considering that, a new Camry is now 35,000. Well, here's something way more special. And finally, my number 1 favorite car we've sold for under $30,000, easy. This 2002 BMW X5 lifted with a manual transmission. This sold for like $12,700, way under 30, but it's just one of my favorite overall cars on Cars and Bids. It's just a perfect build of an X5. This is the kind of thing where like that weird friend of yours comes to you and says, I'm gonna do an X5 build. And you're like, yeah, sure you are. And also, why would anyone build an X5? And then they do it and it's executed perfectly. And this was that. Not only was it an X5 that's lifted, but it also has these cool upgrades from the high performance version, the 4.6 IS. The rear bumper, the seats were red, it looked really cool. Then it's a manual transmission. I mean, it's just the combination of every cool thing you could possibly get. Just an amazing off-road build. Almost 185,000 miles, but it looked a lot nicer than that. And this particular X5 powertrain, the 3-liter 6-cylinder, was the notoriously reliable one. The issues came with the V8s. So this car, like I said, brought $12,700. To me, that is the coolest car you could buy for that money. Whoever bought it, I am so jealous. I keep thinking about it. kind of want it for myself, and it's too bad that didn't happen. But those are my top 10 favorite cars we've sold on Cars and Bids for under $30,000. Now, before I go, I do want to highlight 3 upcoming cars that will be selling this week on Cars and Bids that I'm especially excited for and that I want you to watch for because they are going to be exciting auctions. One is this 2002 BMW M5. This was actually one of the first cars we sold when we first launched Cars and Bids a few months ago. It went to a new owner from Cars and Bids. He bought it, and he's decided that maybe it was a little bit too much of a financial commitment. But it was a really nice car, brought great money, extensive maintenance. These cars are all about maintenance, and this one has been maintained well. It looks nice, but most importantly, it's no reserve. The first time around it had a reserve, this time it doesn't. An E39 M5 in nice shape with no reserve, that means somebody could get a deal, but either way, it's going to be very exciting. Next one I'm really excited about is this 2003 Ferrari 575M. This is a beautiful car, really well optioned, the right colors with the cool wheels. Now it is an F1 transmission, the paddles, and a lot of people when I posted this on my social media were like, yeah, it would be cool if it was a manual. Well, yeah, but it would be 4 times as expensive. This is your chance to have a really iconic 2000s Ferrari. It had a clutch service in 2017. It's just a really, really nice shape V12 Ferrari, and I'm definitely excited to see what happens here. 2 more auctions I'm especially interested in. One, this 2009 Toyota Land Cruiser. The 200 series Land Cruiser is starting to be accepted into enthusiast circles. People are starting to modify them for off-roading. They're getting relatively affordable, and they are incredibly reliable, just like previous ones, but even more luxurious, more interior space, bigger engine, more power. This one has been tastefully off-road modified. It looks nice, and it's no reserve. This will be a pretty special one to watch as it closes. Finally, our last auction that I'm especially looking forward to in this upcoming week, 2000 BMW 740i. On the outside just looks like a regular 740, but under the hood it has an E39 M5 powertrain swap with a 6-speed manual from the E39 M5. So basically it is the E38 740i, the best looking car BMW made from that era, powered by an E39 M5, probably the best driving sedan BMW has ever made. And the combination is basically the best BMW that BMW never built. This is a really special car. It has a few flaws and issues, but you're not going to find another one. You get this thing, you take care of a few little things, and you have one of the coolest BMWs that could possibly exist. But anyway, those are a few cars I'm really excited about coming up this week, and also my top 10 favorite cars we've sold for around $30,000 or less on Cars and Bids.